Good morning and welcome to this morning's opening session at ChangeNOW 2021. My name is Kristen Davis and it's an absolute pleasure here to welcome you to talk about cities, oceans and coalitions with my distinguished guests. We have joining us remotely Bertrand Piccard, who is the founder of the Solar Impulse Foundation, also a serial explorer, psychiatrist and ambassador for clean technology. Welcome, Bertrand. And Hidalgo is unfortunately not able to join us on the plateau this morning, but she has sent a recorded message that we'll be listening to shortly. And His Serene Highness, Prince Albert II of Monaco, who is an advocate for clean ocean conservation and adoption of renewable energy to tackle climate change. Now, Bertrand, you are known for your ventures in the skies. You have flown the Solar Impulse in 2015, 40,000 kilometers around the world without fuel, effectively broadcasting to the planet a message of what is possible with clean energy and clean tech. You're the founder and chairman of the Solar Impulse Foundation and have recently launched the 1000 Solutions, which seeks efficient energy solutions for our world, cleaner energy, more efficient, and boosting economic growth. Could you tell us a little bit, please, about why coalitions are important to you in tackling environmental and economic issues?
Never easy to do things alone, so it's quite logical to speak about the need to do coalitions. But there is quite a trick in this word, because it also says, when you are looking for coalitions, that you will do nothing until everybody has come together, which means that we will lose a lot of time. I give you the example of the climate conferences. Climate conferences tend to make a coalition at the worldwide level, bringing everybody together in a consensus. But the consensus at the scale of the planet is not coming. So we can either wait and say, we can do nothing until everybody comes together, or you have the frustration coming from this absence of real coalition, pushing people to do things at a more local level. And this is what happens today. You see cities, you see regions, you see some countries, you see some NGOs, you see some companies, big corporations, who say we are not waiting until there is a big coalition. We start already today, otherwise nothing will happen.
And can you just describe for us briefly the difference between collaboration and coalition for you?
Collaboration is when people work together to reach a goal. The coalition is when you put all the means together and you tie yourself to the others. A collaboration to reduce oil consumption is something where everybody will do what he can. The coalition is that everybody will take the same regulations, the same means. People are going to commit to reach a goal. So I would say the coalition gives more means to succeed. I was working with President Emmanuel Macron on the coalition for maritime transport. And this is powerful because you have commitments from the entire French marine industry who are taking practical and concrete measures. It's much more than just a collaboration.
Thank you. Now, I want to stay on the topic of marine transport for a second, actually, and move from coalitions to oceans, okay? In your opinion, this is a two-part question. What is the most important short-term issue that we must be working on to protect oceans? And what is maybe the invisible, longer-term issue that we should be focusing on, but we don't see right now?
You know, when you speak about oceans, everything is invisible except the shore and the harbor. But everything that happens below the sea, industrial fishing and things like that, which is completely destroying marine life, we don't see it. When you have ships polluting in the middle of the ocean, we don't see it. So it's very, very important to address these so-called invisible problems. And in that sense, there are two things that are extremely important if we speak about marine transportation. It's the fact that we have to ban the bunker fuel. Because today the ships are burning the waste of the fuel refineries. The most heavy and dirty thing that nobody knows what to do with is burned by the ships, with a lot of sulfur, with a lot of particles, with a lot of pollution. This is something that has to be banned as quickly as possible. And also the speed of the ships. You know, if you reduce by 20% the speed of a ship, you reduce by 34% the emissions because you reduce the fuel consumption. And this is something that has to enter into a coalition. You can very well follow the speed of the ship between a harbor and the other one, and the harbor can decide, no, the ship has come too fast, has wasted energy, made too much pollution. It will not be allowed to enter in the harbor before 2 days, for example, and we will make him lose the time that he was supposed to gain by going faster and polluting more. So there are a lot of things we can do, but it's true that either it's a single harbor who can decide to do it, and some of them are doing it, and you have otherwise a wider coalition that will oblige everybody to comply with these new rules.
So effectively, yes, coalitions are important in ensuring that the new rules and regulations that are put in place are actually respected, and industries like the marine transport industry do follow up on this. Thank you very much. I want to move to the subject of cities now. As I mentioned, unfortunately, Anne Hidalgo is not able to join us on the plateau, but she has been mayor of Paris since 2014. She's known for creating what's known the 15-minute city. That's her goal, in which you'll be able to find everything you need within a neighborhood within 15 minutes walk or bike ride. Throughout the coronavirus pandemic, she's also introduced 50 kilometers of bike lanes known as Corona Piste here in Paris, and has recently announced that she's going to be turning the Champs-Élysées into an extraordinary garden. Let's hear from Anne Hidalgo what she has to say about sustainable cities.
Mesdames et messieurs, cher Prince Albert, cher Bertrand Piccard, je suis heureuse de participer à ce bel événement ChangeNOW. Je veux vous dire d'abord bravo. Ce n'était pas simple de maintenir l'édition 2021 et vous y êtes parvenus. Le réchauffement climatique est là, il appelle un engagement de toutes et tous, il nous oblige à changer radicalement, il appelle de la créativité. Et être créatif, c'est aujourd'hui agir dans la proximité pour plus de solidarité, pour une alimentation locale, pour des transports bas carbone et non polluants, pour une économie locale. Les villes sont l'épicentre de cette révolution climatique. En 5 ans, nous avons été plus d'1 millier de maires à déclarer l'urgence climatique. Plus de 300 villes se sont engagées dans la neutralité carbone depuis la signature de l'accord de Paris. Les villes sont un espoir pour l'avenir et c'est au cœur de nos quartiers, avec les citoyennes et les citoyens, que nous pouvons penser autrement le monde et inventer de nouvelles manières de nous déplacer, de consommer, de nous alimenter, de produire aussi de l'énergie. C'est le sens de la mobilisation collective des villes à laquelle Paris prend toute sa part depuis la COP21. L'union fait la force. C'est pourquoi nous devons mettre en commun nos idées à tous les niveaux de décision pour vivre mieux, mettre fin à l'insécurité alimentaire, protéger les plus fragiles, rafraîchir nos villes, protéger nos ressources naturelles. À nous donc d'inventer de nouvelles coopérations avec les territoires ruraux, les villes voisines. J'aimerais terminer avec un mot sur la défense de l'océan. Nos villes doivent absolument diminuer la pression qu'elles exercent en agissant sur la pollution au plastique et la surpêche et les hydrocarbures. Des baleines jusqu'aux plus minuscules organismes présents dans le plancton, l'océan ne cesse de nous impressionner par l'incroyable richesse des fonds marins et de tous ses potentiels. Pour que l'océan continue à assurer les fonctions protectrices de notre climat et de l'écosystème terrestre, tel que nous le connaissons, il nous faut agir plus fort. Vous pouvez compter sur moi. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Anne Hidalgo, for that video address. So, Bertrand, whilst we're waiting His Serene Highness Prince Albert II to join us, I want to talk to you about cities, and in particular, energy and mobility, clean energy and mobility. It's one of the struggles that many of us that live and work in cities are facing today. How do we move around cleanly and as efficiently as possible? But beyond that, let's also think about quality of life, because this is what we're all trying to seek as well. It's not just about how do we live sustainably, but how do we live well? So how do you consider that we can create competitive spaces in both cities and rurals to improve our quality of life, but also live cleanly and sustainably?
It's quite difficult to speak about quality of life because this definition is different for everyone. You have people living in cities where the quality of life is the freedom to take their car, to be stuck in a traffic jam for an hour, but to arrive where they want to arrive directly. So it's difficult really to stick to that. I believe what we need to show are the advantages given by all the new solutions and the new technologies. 2 years ago, I was at ChangeNOW announcing that the Solar Impulse Foundation was looking for 1,000 solutions that would at the same time protect the environment and allow economical development. Now we have reached this goal. Even past this goal, we have identified 1,150 of these solutions. And a lot of them are for mobility, are for energy, are for water, and they apply for cities, of course. And we see that there is a tremendous improvement that we can do to make our life more efficient. The big problem is that we waste. We are inefficient in our world. We have cars that have the engines with thermal combustion that has only maximum 27% of efficiency. It means you lose 3/4 of the gasoline, compared to electric motors, which have 97% efficiency. Everything is like this: the cooling systems, the heating systems, the insulation of the buildings, the transportation of electricity, the way we use electricity, the grid, everything is 100 years old, basically. It was created and built and used since 120 years, the beginning of the oil era. So what I would like to do is really to show how much all the technological solutions of today can at the same time improve the quality of the air, improve circulation, improve the efficiency in the energy use, and at the same time will not handicap the people, because it will allow job creation, it will allow economical development. I give you a couple of examples if you want for cities. Today, nobody, or let's say yesterday, nobody knew how to use heat pumps to heat the buildings in the city. Today, you can drill 200 meters, have the installation of a geothermic heat pump in the center of cities for big buildings. It's a huge improvement. You divide the energy consumption by 4. You have companies like H.S.H who are selling efficiency instead of selling energy. So they help the customers to consume less. All these models are changing. And what Hidalgo was saying before is very important. If you have this coalition of cities who will use these technologies, in a few years, you can dramatically improve the situation.
Certainly, many of the technologies have existed for a very long time. And in fact, I know that in Monaco, they've been using sea pumps for more than 60 years. What 60 years ago was considered a crazy idea. They decided to trust a scientist, to trust an innovator, and test this idea. And today, they're able to actually reduce their carbon footprint by using the sea pumps more and more in the city to make it a more sustainable city. Now, indeed, the panel, the title of this panel is Cities, but let's not forget that not everyone lives in cities, okay? We have a rural population as well. How do we ensure that they're also able to live sustainably, use clean energy, and we're not creating these two different poles, sort of an area of city-urban development and then rural with no real links between them, and that opens up a risk of migration?
It's true that we speak a lot of cities because cities produce 78% of the CO2 emissions. So it's clear that we speak about this, but there is the rest of the world. You are right. And what you mentioned with Monaco is important. They are pioneers who are using clean technologies since a long time. The question is, why are other people not using these technologies? Why aren't they pioneers? Well, I think, pioneers is a minority of the population. People who have learned to go into the unknown, to question their certitudes and their habits, to try always to do better. They show what is possible. Now the rest of the people have to be pushed to do the same as the pioneers. Once the pioneers show it's possible, like Monaco with the sea pumps, you need all the other cities living close to the coast to do the same. And this requires coalition, but this requires regulations. I'm sorry to be so down to earth after flying around the world with a solar-powered airplane and showing the beauty of nature and the miracle of life on this planet. But you also have sometimes to be down to earth and say, if people don't behave correctly, we have to put the regulations in place to oblige the new technologies to be used, to enter into everyday's life. And this can be for cities, but it can be for everybody outside the cities. Outside the cities, if you take exactly the opposite, you have the remote communities that are off the grid, who are poor, who are neglected by everybody. Well, this is exactly the right place to put renewable energies that are decentralized, that give access to local populations, allowing local development, job creation, and local wealth. So everywhere you have now renewable energies that are cheaper. This is really important to understand, cheaper than oil, gas, coal, and nuclear power. They are cleaner, they are accessible, and they allow local development at the same time that they protect the environment. But what are we waiting to do that? To implement them everywhere? We are waiting for coalitions that do not come at a higher scale, and we're waiting for regulations. And if it doesn't come, well, it will be local actors, pioneers, who will pull in the good direction, hoping that the others will follow.
Now, in just a few minutes, I want to move to talk more about your 1,000 solutions. But before we do that, I think we may be about to be joined by His Serene Highness, the Prince. Good morning.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to ChangeNOW 2021.
Morning, thank you. I'm sorry, I was given the wrong time.
It's an absolute...
Hello, Bertrand.
Bonjour, Albert.
I know that you gentlemen know each other very well, work together very closely. Monseigneur, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us here on the plateau this morning. You're an advocate for ocean conservation, the adoption of renewable energy, and to tackle climate change. With Bertrand, we've just been talking about coalitions, the role of coalitions that they have. And actually, we've just been talking not just about cities, but also rural environments. What I'd like to know, please, is can you tell me the role of soft power in coalitions, especially in these least developed areas, please?
Well, I think, there's a lot to be said about how to engage soft power into persuading different stakeholders and different organizations to adhere to certain programs, be it at sea or on land. And I think there's it's just building relationships, really, and making sure that they work toward the same goals. But is in any environmental concern or in any scheme to promote different ways of doing things more sustainably, of course, and to try to find the best solutions. And Bertrand, I think, has talked about his 1,000 solution program, which is quite remarkable. But so it's to engage really at all levels of society, not only economic players and the corporate world, but to bring them together with scientists, with NGOs, with civil society at large, that we can really make change happen in all areas. And so I think there's a lot to be said about, making sure that we find every way possible to bring people together, to work together in a multidisciplinary fashion.
I know that through your foundation, you work with coalitions and in fact create coalitions across the areas that your foundation focuses on. So this is the Mediterranean, the polar regions, but also those least developed nations. Can you give us maybe one or two examples of the work that your foundation has done in some of these least developed areas?
Well, yes. As you know, we've been in existence now for over 15 years, and some 600 and plus projects around the world on all 5 continents. But the least developed nations are one of our priorities, of course, and it goes from different programs that we were able to join in Africa. The Congo Basin, but also in other countries in Africa to protect the biodiversity and different programs there. And then of course I'm thinking of programs also in Southeast Asia and in Cambodia, for instance, where we were able to not only ensure that a marine protected area was established, but to engage in the local community there for better fishing practices and of course to be the stewards of this marine protected area. And it really helped that community not only to gain a better understanding of the issues at stake, but also that it was a benefit for them economically. So those are some of the things that we've been working on, but I could name a score of others.
Sorry, can I ask you about one a little closer to home, perhaps? The BMED initiative. Do you want to just tell us quickly about that one?
Of course. Well, I thought you wanted me to focus on least developed nations, but of course, then we do have programs that are in one area that is, of course, close to us and also one of our priorities, along with polar regions and least developed countries, and that's the Mediterranean. And so that we set up a program that not only local communities first, and that they could sign up with different programs, not only to reduce their use of plastics, but to collect them, but to make sure that there's a recycling program as well. And so it's called BMED, Beyond Plastic Mediterranean, and really with countries all along the Mediterranean shores. We've been able to have a very successful program and a lot of feedback from not only the big countries around the Mediterranean, not only France, Italy, Spain, but also Greece, Albania, Croatia, Turkey, and some of the southern shore countries as well. So with not a huge budget, but we can really make a difference in some of these countries and in some of these small communities.
Thank you. So that's an example of making a difference at a government and a country level as such. Bertrand, I want to come back to you and ask you about your 1,000 solutions. So having flown around the world in Solar Impulse, you've now also scoured the globe looking for the best solutions, the technology that already exists that will actually help us continue to evolve clean technologies, clean energies for the planet. Through that search, based on what you've learned, based on what you've seen, what should we be doing better? What should we be encouraging to better foster solutions that are both great for the planet, but also robust businesses?
Yes. What we need to do is to understand that the legal framework in which we work today is completely outdated. It allows us to pollute legally. It allows us to put as much CO2 as we want in the atmosphere, as much plastic we want in the oceans. And this is not normal, because each time you accuse people of polluting, they answer, we are sorry, what we do is legal. So we need today to update, to modernize, to reactualize the regulations in order to allow things to happen, because regulations are not only prohibitions, it's also allowing new things to come, and to put the standards and the norms much, much more ambitious. If you put some obligations of energy efficiency, of lower particles from the engines or from the chimneys of factories, and so on and so on, what will happen? It will pull the innovation to the market, because it creates a need, it creates a necessity. And this is exactly what we work for now. We have identified 1,153 solutions coming from startups or big companies that are ready to be used. Some of them are used, like the sea pump in Monaco. But most of them are blocked prisoners of startups, prisoners of research labs, and they are not pulled by the market because it is not mandatory to be efficient. So modernizing the legal framework is something I will never emphasize enough, because this will create the development of a lot of new companies, a lot of new solutions, a lot of new business opportunities, industrial opportunities that are financially profitable, and it will allow to create jobs. And at the same time, it will make a tremendous difference for the environment.
Okay, so you're saying we actually need to push the laws and the regulations to meet almost the cutting edge technologies that are out there, and to bring this in. And in fact, this is very much what your Solar Impulse journey was about. Not only did you circumnavigate the globe, but you sent a message about what could be done. Now, I understand there's another example with light bulbs, maybe, that you can tell us about. Light bulbs not being, the regulation about what we need in light bulbs has not been set at the highest level of what we can actually deliver in terms of light technology. And so that's another example of where, again, we're setting the barrier low for ourselves, maybe, and we need to constantly be pushing it up.
Well, France and Monaco is an example where the LED light bulbs became the norm, because the LED light bulbs have 95% of efficiency, when the incandescent light bulbs have only 5% of efficiency. So the incandescent light bulbs are now prohibited in France and Monaco, but they're still allowed in a lot of other countries. So this is one example of how a political decision can change a lot in terms of efficiency, pollution, waste of energy, and so on.
Certainly. We have a few minutes left, and I have a question that I'd like to ask to you both, please. Okay. This panel is about coalitions. But one of the things that we have been collectively calling and hearing for years is that the public needs to do more, needs to step up. And in fact, they've done that. We have now more public voices and more public engagements to support environmental issues. My question to you both is, how can we empower these public voices in collaboration with coalitions? Monseigneur, perhaps if you'd like to reply.
Yes, well, I think very, very simply, and I was reading something in our local paper today that there's a cleanup program that's been set up by one of the high schools here, the high school I went to, and they for several weeks now they get a group of kids together. I know this is done around the world with many other schools, but to see that at not only, because it's normally younger kids that are brought to do that. But for teenagers, for high school students to volunteer to do these kind of cleanup programs, that's relatively new, and so that's an encouraging sign. But beyond that, I think it's a matter of just identifying the different groups in our communities and in our societies to have them understand that it is the only way forward is to pull together different goodwills and different resources to have our world turn more towards sustainability and toward a better efficiency of our, not only our energy needs, but of the way that we consume, that we travel, that we and that we use mobility in a cleaner and more efficient way. And so there are many ways to engage people, but it's through it's basically also the political will, but also to enable these groups to come together in a more collective and more coherent way.
Thank you so much. We just have a minute and a half left, Bertrand. How can we empower the public and public engagement in coalitions?
Yes, we have said that we need the top-down approach to give to the public the access to the new technologies. Of course, we need to motivate the people to use technologies that are good for them and for the environment, and to adopt the behaviors that are logical as much as ecological, to eat more local, to consume less meat, to use electric mobility, to stop overheating the buildings, to insulate their flat or their house. There are a lot of things that can be done here. And this is maybe the soft power, is when you inspire people to try to do good. And in this case, of course, this is communication. The media have a big role to play in order to motivate the people to do that, to inform them. And at the end, the people should not forget that in most of the countries, they have the power because they are voting, and they have to elect people who care about the environment and not selfish leaders who just care about themselves.
Well, thank you very much to you both for joining us here and for this Ocean Cities Coalitions panel this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both with us. Thank you to Anne Hidalgo for her video message also. I do hope that you'll be able to stay with us to participate. Bertrand Piccard, I think you're participating in other parts of Change Now throughout our vast program. Monseigneur, it was an absolute pleasure to have you with us on the plateau this morning. I'll be coming down to Monaco to check out your sea pumps at some time soon. Thank you very much, everyone. I will see you on the Change Now live TV channel in just a few minutes. Goodbye.